2019 was a big year for Kingston folk singer-songwriter Julia Finnegan. From graduating from Queen's University's Fine Art program and attending an accelerated music business program at Humber College, to earning herself a spot as one of 6 winning finalists in the inaugural YGK Emerging Musician Competition. Julia has shared the stage with many artists who inspire her music. Rose Cousins, Matthew Barber, The Weather Station, and fellow Kingstonian Miss Emily, just to name a few. Following the trajectory of 2019, 2020 was shaping up to be a busy year as well, packed with performances and the release of her first full-length album. However, plans had to be modified. But Julia hasn't let that diminish her momentum. She's performed online with local organizations like Visit Kingston. She's hosted a number of Facebook live streams, and most recently, she collaborated on a video with Jamstone Productions. Julia Finnegan's first full-length album is on its way, and we'll hear its first single on this edition of Kingston Live. Hello, Julia.
Hello.
Hello, Riley Jabour.
Hello. I don't know why I wave. I always do that. No one can see me wave.
Well, we can see you. This is over Zoom.
I can feel the wave.
From blocks away, yes. I should point out, yes, for those listening, if they haven't figured it out, we are doing this over Zoom. You can probably tell by the sort of semi-distorted computer mic kind of sounds. But yeah, we're all here. Julia, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I thought we'd just kind of start at the beginning to do the predictable thing. I'm just wondering how you got started and how you went from there to ending up on the Isabel Bader stage.
So I got a guitar for my 7th birthday. My dad always played guitar around the house, and so I always kind of wanted to imitate him, and he'd involve me in the songwriting process and everything. And then from there, we moved to Kingston when I was about 9 years old, and then I started doing shows when I was 12. So I first opened for Andrew Van Horen. He is in the Celtic Kitchen Party. And so my first gig was at the RCHA Club. And yeah, I was just really fortunate with lots of opportunities in this town and tried to seize as many as I could.
What's that like playing it like at 12? That's very young to be in front of an audience.
It is. And yeah, it's kind of funny because, I mean, a lot of my time performing, I spent a lot of time in bars before I was of legal age, like at normal hours, not when I wasn't supposed to be there. But yeah, it's kind of funny just being a kid in a bar. My stage presence was not very good. My in-between banter was basically, this is a Bob Dylan song. This is this song, you know, so.
No, I think every musician's had that experience regardless of their age. Yeah, it's weird being in front of strangers and all of a sudden, I have to actually talk to these people as well. You spend all this time playing the music and then you have to talk. Yeah.
I'm curious of the process from going from 12 years old to being an adult. At what point did you really notice like the attitude of the crowd change? Because I would imagine if you see a 12-year-old on stage, you're going to be a little bit more forgiving, I guess, than seeing an adult perform. And did you find at a certain point there was kind of that threshold where you crossed where you're like, oh, like they're treating me like a grown-up now, sort of thing?
They're way nicer to me then. No, it's I guess when I really felt the change was when I started kind of making more of an effort to engage with people in between songs, because that makes, in my experience, that makes more of a difference when you're trying to engage people and make them feel welcome and kind of help them have a good time. And then also just, I guess, progressing as a musician, like learning different things you should and shouldn't do during shows.
Well, let's talk. John touched briefly on you performing on the stage of the Isabel. You were part of the YGK Emerging Artist Competition, which I always find that naming fascinating because emerging artists, but so many of the artists like yourself have been at it, have been musicians for so long. Did that feel weird with that particular labeling of the competition?
Yeah, I mean, labeling is always generally kind of strange. It's hard even like just showing your genre because so many things are so broad, you know? But yeah, I don't know if you guys know Greg Ball, but I had posted about the YGK Emerging Musician Competition, and Greg had commented on my status, and he's like, "What? You've already emerged." So it's just kind of funny, which was a really nice comment. I was like, thank you for noticing. But yeah, definitely, it's kind of a funny name, but it's hard to find an app title to include everyone.
Well, we've talked about that show and that competition, whatever you want to call it, before, and I think everybody was kind of in the same boat where, you know, everybody's been at it for a while, but I think maybe the idea is it's people who've kind of reached that kind of critical mass, and it's like they're ready to have that exposure and to be on that stage in front of that crowd. And I was at that show, and that was an amazing show. Like just everybody was so professional. And I've said before on this podcast, like when I heard emerging musician competition, like I'd seen some of the performers before, but I was just knocked out by how professional everybody was. Nobody felt like they were nervous or green or anything, including yourself. That's good because I was all of those things. So I was so nervous, but yeah, no, that was such a dream to play there. But yeah, I think in terms of the emerging kind of title, you have to have been playing for a little bit because it's just going into a show like that where it's kind of a lot of pressure. You have to know what you're doing, I guess. That's not a good way of saying it, but you have to have a little bit of experience because it'd be really, really hard if that were your first show ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel so fortunate for that one. That was probably my favorite show I ever played. Yeah, and again, it was such a great show. That was a great night. I want to switch gears a little bit because you bring kind of a multidisciplinary thing to the table because you paint as well. I do, yeah. Yeah. How does that fit in? Like, are they related at all? Like, does the inspiration come from the same place, or are they two kind of different things for you? How do you use both of those in terms of expression? It's funny because, I mean, I find with art, it's inspired by my music only insofar as what I paint. Like sometimes I paint guitars or whatever, the content of it can bleed into music. But I remember last year I was at Queen's and I was doing a printmaking course. And so I was doing, I think, a lithography or a silk screen or something. But I was in the middle of the process and I just had this line come in my head. And so it's funny because when I don't know, just different songwriting things kind of pop in my head at the most inconvenient times. So I think when I'm doing something like that and using the creative part of my brain, I think it kind of connects in a weird way. Creativity is always inconvenient, and I think anybody that's an artist or that is a creative person has had that moment where something just comes to them, and it's the least convenient time ever. Yeah. When I was little, I used to write songs on the bus. Like things come to your mind in like really weird places. That's all I was thinking. Did you have any way of recording it at the time, or was it just, I'm going to keep thinking about this until I get home? No, I just sing to myself. I was probably really weird to sit beside on the bus, but I just like sing to myself and then write in my little notebook. On the subject of like creativity and timing, have you found that during this pandemic where everybody's sort of, the world is different, you know, you got to spend more time indoors and you can't do your usual routine. Has that affected your creativity, both from a musical standpoint or from visual arts standpoint? Has that given you more to work with or less to work with because there's less inspiration, I guess, you could run into day to day? That's a really good question. You know, on the visual side of art, like painting and stuff, I haven't painted for like a year. And then the pandemic honestly just gave me time to sit down and set up and do some work with that. And then on the music side, I find that my songwriting is really, really integrated with my experiences day to day. And so since it's such a profound shift, I find it's really difficult to write. So I was hoping that I'd be able to write some stuff, but I've been writing every day, but nothing of real substance. I'm sad and I'm in my house
again.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I've talked to, and maybe Riley's talked to people as well. I've talked to lots of, quote unquote, creative people who, they have all this time all of a sudden, but there's just nothing coming to them. And I think if we've learned anything during the pandemic in terms of creativity, it's that a lot of creativity just comes from life and life experience, and you need input if you're going to create output. And for a lot of people, there's just nothing. It's hard to be inspired when you're just in the same place 24 hours a day. Totally.
And it's really hard too, because quarantine, I'm not sure if you guys are finding this, but you're spending so much time alone, and there's a lot of time to reflect. So I always thought that I would be able to kind of organize my thoughts with this time, but I don't know. I don't know what it is.
It's a huge imbalance. There's either, too much time or no time at all. And I think if you're going to do anything creatively, you need a balance of both.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People joke about after the quarantine ends that we're going to see like a baby boom because there's nothing else to do. But I feel like on the musical side of things, we're going to see a boom of like concept albums where people just write about like stuff they imagined, because there's no stimulus for people
That'd
anymore.
That'd be kind of cool. Yeah.
I'm a sucker for a good concept album. So yeah. Well, hey, while we're talking about new albums, you have been working on a new one that you recorded with Jonas Bonetta, Evening Hymns. Mm-hmm. How did you guys connect, and how did that come to be?
So at the beginning of my third year of university, so I guess last year, I connected with Virginia Clark of the Grad Club. And so she's always been a huge booster and really supportive. So I went to her because I was feeling really lost and unsure of what to do. And she's like, you need to, if you're really pursuing this music thing, you need to record an album. Meet up with Jonas. He's this really great guy. He's got this awesome studio about an hour north of here. And she's like, no pressure, but I think you could create something really cool. So I was like, okay. So she emailed him, and then I met him the next day. And I went to his studio just for a test run one weekend to record one song. And I loved it so much that I just wanted to record the whole thing with him.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Well, maybe that's a good segue into the song, because you have a new single that we're going to play. Do you want to say anything about it before we jump into it?
Sure. So Sleepwalking is the song that I'm going to be releasing on August 7th. So I'm super excited about it. It's the first song that I'll be releasing on a streaming platform. And Sleepwalking is actually, I was mentioning this song earlier, that it came to me while I was printmaking. So this is that song. And I just thought it was appropriate because this whole pandemic kind of feels like you're sleepwalking or like a weird dream. So I just thought it was a nice way to start off the album.
Kept your coffee in my car. Couple days overdue. It fills the space on your side. Shift to reverse, I think of you. Break of day, we said goodbye. Dreamless sleep in a pale moon. I made my bed and now I lie, counting sheep I used to count on you. And through the day I'm just sleepwalking, always. I turned over the page, erased the lines that you
To give you a little bit of background, I guess, Jonas Bonetta, he has this studio an hour north of Kingston in a place called Mountain Grove. And it's just out in the country. It's really easy to disconnect. And I spent a lot of time writing there. And so while we were recording other songs, I had these lines in my head. And so I was writing it down when we were editing things. And I was showing Jonas kind of drafts of it. And I wasn't very confident in it, but he's like, Julia, I really like it. Like, keep working at it. So in between breaks, I would go on his piano and I'd work on the song. So I just wrote it in the studio and it came together really organically. And yeah, it's special to me because I'd never written a song on piano before. It just, yeah.
Well, and I was surprised to hear the piano as well, because I've seen you play a few times, and I kind of like that sort of percussive kind of approach you have to the guitar as well. So I was surprised to hear the piano, but it was a cool change of pace.
Yeah. Jonas has this Rhodes piano that he always plays, and it's actually him in the recording. I can form chords, but I really can't play very well. So yeah, it was neat to have that kind of change of pace for sure.
And who else is singing on that track?
It's actually just me and Jonas.
Okay,
so Jonas
it is Jonas.
sings with
All right.
me. Yeah. Jonas sings with me on the bridge part. He originally just wanted it really in the background, but I got him to up the vocal because I really like kind of the duet sound.
Yeah, it worked nicely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Kingston, because this is Kingston Live. We like to talk about the city where we're from, because the whole point of this is to promote Kingston as the amazing music city that it is. And you said you weren't born here, but you've been here for quite some time.
Yeah, I was born in Belleville, and then I moved to Peterborough for 2 years, but I've lived in Kingston for almost 13 years, which is the longest I've lived anywhere. So Kingston's home for me, I would say. But I'm not originally born here.
Neither is Riley Jabour.
Kingston just gets its hooks in you and you stick around for a while. It's one of those cities.
Yeah.
On behalf of all Kingston-born people, I will accept both of you. Yes.
Thanks, John.
I promise that'll be the most pretentious thing I'll say this whole podcast. But yeah, I did want to talk about, and we ask a lot of people this, but I'm just curious your thoughts about Kingston as a music city and what makes it special.
I think just even when I was starting out, like, there's so many opportunities for emerging musicians to kind of have a stage. And that's really not common. A lot of towns have huge stadiums for like really big bands, but you need those small venues for those kind of opportunities. I feel lucky to be here because Kingston has so many venues like that.
Something interesting that's come up when we talked to Nick Babcock last year, he said something really interesting about, and I'm curious to get your perspective because, as we mentioned earlier, you started very young. I remember he said something about how when he was younger, he was just in the West End, and then when he was of legal drinking age, he discovered all these venues that he didn't know existed. But I'm curious, because you said you played in some bars before. Like, was that kind of like your experience, or how did you sort of discover Kingston in that regard?
I mean, my experience was, I was really fortunate that I had quite a few people take me under their wing. Like, Andrew Van Horn was really awesome and introduced me to different venue coordinators. So I played at the Mansion. The Mansion was awesome to me when I was growing up. And I had this really crappy band. We played rock pop songs. We were called Nightshade. And so I would have been, I think, 13 or maybe not 13, 14, 15, that kind of age cohort. But, and we'd play to like 5 people, and those 5 people would be like our parents. And they'd be like, they were so supportive to just humor us and have us there. So I just feel really lucky. This town is full of really supportive people who just love music.
As someone who started playing in the bar scene so young and then stayed in Kingston to go to Queens and continue your career musically, when you were attending Queens and your first kind of legal drinking age hitting the bar scene, did you kind of feel like you had this cool insider knowledge of like everybody else is like new to town or like new to bars, but you had already kind of known the scene, right?
I mean, kinda. My best friend, I met her. She lived across the hall from me in residence, and she's from Detroit. And so the first week we had orientation week, and we were doing like tours of Kingston. And I said to her, I was like, Marie, don't worry about that. I'll show you Kingston. Like we'll go around. I'll show you everything. And so that I had a ton of fun, and that was a really fun way to bond with her and show people around that maybe they wouldn't see. Because a lot of Queen's students, and this is a huge generalization, but I think a lot of my friends even don't think to venture very far downtown. So it's really fun to show people different sides of Kingston that they wouldn't otherwise see. It's always really interesting to show people and kind of see Kingston for the first time again.
Totally. Yeah. And there's so much to see too, which is great. And speaking of seeing things, I'm curious, what's your favorite venue to play?
Oh, no, I can't. John, that is a controversial question.
That doesn't mean you don't like the other ones.
I don't know.
Or maybe if we rephrase it a little bit, it may be, do you have like a favorite memory of performing?
That's a nice way to phrase it too. I'm just teasing. I'm just being difficult. I think in terms of the music that I play and just kind of where the atmosphere is most cohesive, I would say YGK is really fun. There are so many venues in town that I love, like Grad Club, the Mansion, the Toucan. Like there's so many, but I think YGK kind of attracts people who really like folk music. And so it's pretty straightforward for me to kind of put together a show and yeah, because it's hard when you're playing at a bar where people are wanting live music and they're wanting really loud kind of performances, and when you can't deliver that, it's there's kind of a disconnect.
Yeah, and a lot of people we've talked to have said similar things. I think YGK is very much a musician's venue. It's just so music friendly, and it's, when you do play in bars, there's kind of, the people are there for different reasons. Some people are there to drink, and some people are there for the music. YGK is very much a listening crowd.
Totally, and I mean, it's got music in its name. Like it's just, it's really, it attracts a lot of people who are wanting to listen. And the different stages that they have, even just within the building, are amazing. Like the patio, the downstairs and the upstairs. You can deliver really different shows wherever you are.
Yeah, I was about to say that's kind of the magic of YGK, in that if you showed someone who's never been there 3 photos of the 3 performance spaces, they wouldn't guess that it's all the same comparatively small venue. Like the footprint of itself is pretty light compared to some of the other venues in town, but it's got 3 distinct separate performance spaces that are all magic in their own way.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because they all have a different distinct charm. Like if you're playing in the front window, you have people walking in who are hearing your music and wanting to come in. Or the back patio, a lot of people don't know that even exists. So they feel really excited and are happy to be there. And same with the upstairs. So yeah, I love that place.
I like to ask people if they care to share any on-stage disasters, any mishap stories, anything like that you care to share with us?
Oh man, there's too many. One particular incident. So I mentioned before to you guys, I was in a band called Nightshade, and the guys were really, really supportive and really fun, but we were all just starting out. And Andrew had hooked us up with this show at Tiernanog, and I don't even remember what had happened, but I was so nervous, so nervous. And I think it was like a combination of like what I'd eaten and how many people were there. And I got up to sing, and I was in the middle of a song, and I couldn't stay there, and I ran off the stage. And my parents are super supportive, so they even come to my shows now just to kind of show support. But my mom was there because I was pretty young, and she stopped me and she's like, "You cannot do this. You need to go back out there. You're okay. You're just in your head. It's all right." So she kind of talked me up, and then I was fine. But that was super embarrassing.
Did the people know what was going on, or did they think maybe it was part of the act or something?
They're like, "Wow, this is such great acting." I don't know. I don't know what they thought. So
interactive. She ran right past us.
Yeah. I don't know what they thought.
Well, sometimes I like to wrap these interviews up by asking our guests if they have any advice for aspiring musicians, but maybe that's something. Do you have any, just on the subject of stage fright and nervousness? Like I've seen you perform several times. You didn't run away. How do you get over that?
To be honest, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I don't really. Like I don't. I think the day that I don't get nervous anymore is the day that I don't really care about music. And the nerves now, I've gotten kind of used to it, and it's kind of an exciting thing, like an anticipation kind of feeling. And so usually I have to close my eyes when I'm playing, and then once I kind of get through the first or second song, then I'm okay. But for example, for the Isabel, I was so nervous and I felt like running away, but that would have been so bad. And I was fortunate. The light show that they had there, I couldn't see a single soul in the crowd. And so if you just kind of think that you're doing it for you and you're singing for yourself, then I think that's helpful just for the first part. Because if you're just doing that for the whole show, then that's not really very interactive or engaging for other people. But for the first part, you kind of have to get out of your head.
Julia, I've seen you play a number of times. If you were nervous, I was oblivious to it, and I'm sure the rest of the audience was as well. It was a great performance every time, and I'm so glad you didn't run away.
Me too. So far, that's been my only running away incident, but we'll see. But thanks so much, Sean.
So, Julia, we've got new music on the way. When's the single out again? So
the single is called Sleepwalking, and it's going to be out on all streaming platforms on August 7th. And I'm really excited about it.
Yes, we're excited too. And there's going to be some music to follow in the future, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so I have 8 songs that I'm going to be releasing. So Sleepwalking is the first one of that. And then I have much more to come. So I'm super, super thankful and really excited.
Can't wait for it.
Yeah, we look forward to it.
Thank you.
This has been Kingston Live. We encourage you to rate us on your listening platform of choice and subscribe where possible. Kingston Live was recorded in Kingston at Titan Sound. Hosted by John Sanfilippo and Riley Jabour. Writing and research by Peter Sanfilippo. Executive producer Rob Howard. Special thanks to Jackson Coulter and Reed Cunningham. Opinions expressed by Kingston Live guests are their own and don't necessarily reflect the opinions of Kingston Live hosts and staff. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@kingstonlive.ca.